Hey everyone, Tristan back with another video, and in this video we are checking out and reviewing these headphones. These are the Hi-Fi-Man Aria headphones, and these are them here. These retail for $15.99, so $1,600. And these were originally supposed to be for mass drop or drop, and for some reason apparently that deal fell through. They were supposed to be a mass drop or drop edition of the Hi-Fi-Man HE1000s. I believe they were called the HE1000Xs. They are based on the HE1000 V2 drivers, so they have the same drivers in here, very similar. But the HE1000s typically retail for about $3,000, and these retail for $1,600. So these are definitely, a better deal. Right off the bat, I have to say that I really like the look of these. They did a really good job with the black finish. I generally don't like the Hi-Fi-Man headphones that are stainless steel. They just look kind of cheap to me for some reason. So I think the black looks a lot better. Also, the cable that these come with is kind of nice. It's got like a cloth sheath on them. Prior cables from Hi-Fi-Man generally tended to feel really cheapy with their cheap rubber coating that sometimes would feel almost sticky and stuff like that, whereas this cable isn't that way at all. So this is a pretty nice included stock cable. It just comes with one cable, 1/4 inch on the amp side, and then the 3.5 millimeter on the ear cup side. And I believe this cable is 1.5 meters long. It could stand to be a little bit longer, given that you're typically plugging this into a home amp rather than taking it with you, portably. I would prefer maybe a 2-meter long cable or something, but not too bad. So these are 35 ohm headphones, but they have a sensitivity of 90 dB. So that pretty much means that they're not super easy to drive. They're not the hardest to drive headphones in the world, but definitely for the optimal sound, you will want a headphone amplifier. And also from what I understand, Hi-Fi-Man has done a couple of revs of these. I believe this is the current version as of this video, which may be like Rev 2, based on the fact that it has like a cloth on the outside. I don't know if you can kind of see in the video, but on the outside of the driver it's cloth, whereas I think prior versions was like more of a mesh, like a wire mesh. So let's talk about like the design and build quality first, and then a little bit later in the video we'll delve into the sound. The earpads could stand to be a little bit plusher, and that's one of my complaints about all Hi-Fi-Man headphones. I feel like the earpads could be a little bit plusher and more thick. That being said, I don't have any problems with when I wear these with them touching my ears or anything like that. They're fairly plush, but they're kind of thin, and so the inside of the earpads, the part that touches your face and your head, is polyester, and then on the sides they have a, I guess, protein leather, like a fake leather. They're very comfortable headphones because they only weigh 405 grams. And I've said in other videos before that any headphones over 500 grams are basically going to be too heavy for my liking. So yeah, in terms of comfort, these definitely are pretty comfortable. And you've got the headband strap here as well, and then you've got the adjustability here. Let me go ahead and show you what they look like on. So this is how they look on, and from the head-on view, they don't look that cool because you have this, a headband, this wire band on the top. But from the sides, I think they look pretty cool. Again, they are very big headphones in terms of the drivers, so they fit over the ear very comfortably. And that's one of the things I really like about these headphones. I tend to like headphones with bigger drivers and ones that fit over the ear, not on the ear. And the ear definitely fits inside these really, really well. Build quality seems generally pretty good. It does seem a little bit cheapy in terms of this metal headband here. And also I have heard that as you move these adjusters up and down, it kind of can scratch the inside. That might be a par for the course for Hi-Fi-Man headphones. But on the other hand, the sort of cheaper build quality of this does make the headphones lighter. You've got plastic ear surrounds here on the ear cups, and then this is routed out here on the top, as you can see. So it does make the headphone lighter than like a steel and wood headphone would be in some of the other Hi-Fi-Man higher end headphones. So that's really a plus for these. For me, the lighter the better, and it also makes it more comfortable as well. So like in terms of the overall materials, I actually don't mind that because it does make for a more comfortable and lighter headphone. So this is the box that it comes in, and I like that it's not a big huge box because storage can sometimes be an issue if you live in a small place or something like that. Here's the back of it, And I'll go ahead and show you the inside of the box as well. So here's the inside of the box, and it's got this nice sort of satin holder where the headphones go. And then in the middle here is a foam piece that you can kind of pull out, and the headphone cables would be in the middle there. So, a pretty nice package. And then it also comes with this really nice printed booklet as well, with information inside just about the headphones. It's basically instructions, and a welcome note from the CEO, Fan Bing, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a nicely printed book in multiple languages. So all in all, pretty nice packaging with the Arias for sure. So let's delve into the sound of the Hi-Fi Man Aria. Let's start with the treble. I think the treble on these headphones is really quite good. It has a very uncanny way of presenting the treble in a very sort of crystalline, realistic way, but at the same time not being harsh. And I think that is probably due to the fact that these are planar dynamic drivers versus a regular type driver. Regular type drivers can tend to lead to more harshness across the frequency spectrum. Planar drivers tend to be a bit smoother. And so that's one of the characteristics, I think, of the Aria. It just has this really uncanny ability to sound really crystalline, at the same time not being really harsh. Contrast that to something like the Focal Clears. I have found that especially when you turn those up, you kind of hear this metallic sort of almost distortion in the highs, and it kind of sounds metallic, where you don't have that with the Hi-Fi Man Arias at all. So yeah, definitely really good highs. And that sort of ties in with the soundstage as well. The soundstage on these is really pretty wide, certainly wider than the Focal Clears, also wider than my Sony MDR Z1Rs. Now the Sony Z1Rs are a closed back headphone and these are open, but the Z1Rs tend to have a bit of a wide soundstage for closed back headphones, but the Aria is definitely wider in that respect. It's definitely pretty expansive, especially in the highs. So you have like an orchestra and you have cymbals on one side, you really hear it like way over here. So that's really cool, but at the same time, it's not too wide. Some have said headphones such as the Sennheiser HD800 series might actually be a little bit too wide and accentuate the wideness, whereas you don't really have that with the Arias. The Arias are wide when they need to be, but then if you are listening to a piece that doesn't really call for having a super wide soundstage, then it won't sound really wide. So they're very realistic and accurate in that respect. If you're listening to a studio recording of a 3-piece jazz ensemble or something, that might not be really super wide. And so it won't sound real wide on these headphones, which is good. Now moving down the frequency spectrum to the mids, the Arias really do have a nice mid presence. I, however, would not call them mid-rangey headphones like the AudioQuest Nighthawks or Night Owls or something like that, or Odyssey headphones. They have a really nice mid-presence and vocals sound really good on them, but they're not super forward like some other headphones. I'd have to say that female vocals on the Hi-Fi Man Aria really shine because you have that really sort of crystalline, realistic sound signature, again, without being harsh. Male vocals also sound pretty good, but I noticed they sound a little bit more breathy, for lack of a better word, than female vocals on these headphones. Although certainly not really a complaint there, they still sound really good. And then going into the lower mids and also the bass, these can stand to use a little bit of a bass boost in my opinion. That being said, I am kind of a bass head. I have found that putting in a bit of a bass boost on this with a low shelf EQ starting at about 85 really does get these kicking in terms of the bass, and I can get them to sound almost as bassy as my Sony Z1Rs, believe it or not. And these handle EQ quite well and scale really well as well. So actually, believe it or not, coming from someone who's a bit of a bass head, I have no complaints with the bass with these at all, especially when you bass boost a little bit. Now I have heard other Hi-Fi Man headphones at various shows and stuff like that, but these are the first that I've actually owned, so it's hard for me to do a real detailed comparison between these and other Hi-Fi Man headphones. But from everything that I've heard and read online, the Arias are the warmest Hi-Fi Man headphones that you can get in terms of the overall tonality of them. So the Arias are not going to be super brittle sounding or super bright sounding. They're generally on the warm side of neutral. So in general, in terms of these overall sound signature, I would really sort of characterize these as being warm neutral. Now, I think I've said this before in some of my other videos, but I like to look for the gems in terms of the lineup for different headphone manufacturers, and I think the Aria is the gem of the Hi-Fi Man lineup. and probably the one to get in my opinion, especially for the price, because again, at the retail price of $1,600, it's a lot less than $3,000, yet it performs kind of above that price point when you compare it to the other headphones in their lineup, such as the Hi-Fi-Man HE1000 Mark II or the HE1000 SE, which are like $3,000 or over, and this is $1,600. So you can kind of do the math there. And also, as I said, I think these look cooler too. So yeah, I do think that Hi-Fi-Man really does have a winner with the Aria headphones. Now I wanted to touch back briefly on the included cable. According to Hi-Fi-Man, this cable is a crystallized copper cable, and it does sound pretty good, but interestingly, I did try the Sony Z1R Sony Kimber cable on these headphones, which does fit, although it doesn't screw in, because the Sony Z1Rs have a thing where you can screw the headphone cable into the ear cups. So you can't screw them into these. And when you don't do that, you have a little piece that kind of jangles and is a little bit loose, so it's not ideal. But just as a test, I tried the Sony Kimber cable on these headphones, and I liked the sound better. It did improve the bass, so it got a little bit bassier and a little bit darker sound signature. So that kind of shows you that these headphones do scale pretty well with different headphone cables. So you might want to play around with different headphone cables. I did definitely notice a bit of a warmer sound signature when using the Sony Kimber cable versus the stock cable that Hi-Fi-Man includes in the box. That being said, the stock cable is not a bad cable compared to other Hi-Fi-Man stock cables that they include. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these headphones have a 90 dB sensitivity, and so they really can benefit from using a headphone amplifier. I played these mostly with my Chord Hugo TT2 with the M scaler, as well as the Chord Hugo 2. Both of those can drive this perfectly fine, so they definitely will benefit from using a headphone amplifier, and definitely sound worse if you're just trying to plug it directly into something like an iPod or iPhone or something like that. Again, they're not like super easy to drive. The Planar Dynamic drivers do require some oomph behind them in terms of power in order to drive them really well. And also I noticed that these are actually harder to drive than my Sony Z1Rs. For a given volume level, I needed to crank it up a bit more with these than with the Z1Rs. Even though the Z1Rs are 63 ohms and these are 35 ohms, it's the sensitivity that you really need to kind of worry about with regards to driving headphones. And these again only have a 90 dB sensitivity, which is not like super sensitive. So yeah, getting some power behind these will definitely benefit you for sure. So all in all, I have to say I really do like the Hi-Fi-Man Arias here. They have a very realistic sound signature, probably one of the most realistic headphones that I've ever heard. And again, they don't seem to have like a real peaky sound signature or anything like that anywhere in the frequency spectrum. They have a bit of a warm, open, and crystalline sound. I have seen some of the measured frequency response charts online, and apparently this has a bit of a peak at the maybe 8K range or 10K range. So if you want to EQ that down a little bit, you can probably get a bit of a smoother sound out of these, but it's not super necessary. I didn't find these super harsh in the highs like I do with the Sennheiser HD800s, for example. And then if you like bass, I do sort of recommend a bit of bass boost with these, but again, that's personal preference. One of the things with regards to bass that you kind of tend to notice if you listen to bassy headphones very often, like the Sony Z1Rs, is that it sounds like you have a constant bass boost on, like with the subwoofer constantly on. And you kind of get used to that sound and you kind of end up liking it. But you sort of realize over time that might not be like as accurate as you might want. And a lot of times it tends to yield a sort of sound signature where the person playing the bass guitar is more forward and kind of like showing off all the time, no matter what track you're playing, and that might not be always called for. So in that respect, a headphone like this is more sort of balanced across the frequency range, and I think is more realistic and actually more accurate. And again, as I mentioned before, these do respond really well to adding bass boost in EQ if you do want that. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video. This has been my look of the Hi-Fi-Man Aria headphones. I think they're a real gem of a headphone and definitely a pretty good bang for the buck when you compare them to some of the higher end Hi-Fi-Man headphones like the HE1000 series or even the Susvara. You kind of realize that those might be a bit overpriced when you compare them to the Aria, which is sort of interesting. So I think the bang for buck and the one to get is going to be the Aria, and also it's the one that's warmer too, which is a sound signature that I prefer, even versus some of those higher end models. The Arias are definitely a fun listen. I was actually very pleasantly surprised with these warm yet crystalline sounding, and yeah, they're a real gem of a headphone. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them, and also check the description field for our pricing and availability. And if you have these headphones and have any opinion on them, I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that, on anything that we've discussed in this video. And as always, thank you for watching, and if you're not subscribed, please go ahead and do so, and I will see you in my next video.